And welcome back to another episode of my writing channel. So, today's episode, I wanted to talk about inspiration. I wanted to get down to the nitty gritty about what inspired me, what inspires most people, and then, of course, what else am I looking at? Some ways to be inspired, I guess. So, let's talk about Flux, or the Flux trilogy. That's what it's become over the years. And I'll discuss on how I became into writing and all that. So, I grew up with a kind of creative lifestyle. I'm not saying my parents were artists or, they were actors or anything. None of that stuff. My mom was a blue collar worker and my dad was just a messed up druggie. So my parents got divorced and I was left with my mom. And my grandma was kind of the person that inspired me to be creative. She would always push me to that edge. So when I was growing up, being creative, I was more being comedic. I was good at doing a little bit of stand-up. And I was kind of good at telling stories. Just stuff off the top of my head. This later evolved into me going into drama club, because drama club was kind of an alternative to doing sports or marching band that I actually enjoyed. I did drama club for about 4 years, and my director, who is just brilliant man, would always push me to my limits that way. By every time we would have a casting call for the play, we had the option of picking a script off the like any movie, any TV show, just anything. You could even sing if you wanted to, or you could make up your own, which that was always great for me to do because I would make it up and then know my words, so I didn't have to study a script because I was really bad. Because growing up, I was actually illiterate, and when I say I was illiterate, and this comes from a writer of all things. Basically, from first to second, I was in a Catholic school, and you could not read a book. You couldn't learn science. You basically learned how to write and how to do math. So the one thing I was good with was doing math, but I couldn't write or spell or learn sentence structure, which is a problem nowadays that I'm trying to sit down with an editor and try to solve. But nevertheless, I ended up getting learning to read. I ended up learning it through video games as such, doing subtitles in movies. I started picking up more words and my vocabulary picked up. So it's not like I'm completely stupid. I just know how to do basic, anything I say or do, it's fine. So when it came to those writing projects, my grammar at the time was still not great, but I had to work with other people on my scripts for the the tryouts, because I needed extra hands and other people were looking for work. So a lot of people who come work with me on the tryouts ended up getting good parts, and I never would get a good part. But that was because I told my director I really didn't care. I would do a one-liner, which led into an amazing story about milking a one-liner. But I did that as a practice for writing, and then towards my senior year in high school, I started writing scripts just for fun, and it led into me going to college, and I was doing telecommunications, which was broadcasting. That was kind of my I guess go-to, number one to go to, because I wanted to work at Adult Swim or Comedy Central, or anything, at least television, possibly try to get into film, because that's where I felt more creative. I never looked at writing as an opportunity until later down the road. I did minor in writing, and creative writing was my dual major. Now, I did college for about 3, almost 4 years. And the reason why I ended up dropping out was due to the mere fact that my major changed. So I went from a 3-4 year to a 5-6, and they wanted me to pick up additional classes, and I just couldn't afford it. So I dropped out on that pretense. But I did, however, when it came to my minor, I did finish college, at least with somewhat of knowledge writing. I did not get a degree in it, sadly, but I wish I had a degree in writing. But that's just not how my minor worked. You had to do it as a dual major, and they just didn't want to credit me for it. It was basically a perk to my major. So I dropped out of college, and I kind of was working on a book, and I continued going into the book. Right now, that part of that story I don't want to discuss about with you guys unless you guys really want to know the origins of Flux and how that whole thing started, because it was coming from like a real bad place, and it has gotten me this far. Come to 2018, I'm almost done with the third book in the series. I've had a couple beta readers read the first two. No one's really seen the third one, because the third one I've been just constantly working on, and it's been just pulling teeth working on. Honestly, I think this one is the hardest book for me to write for probably two reasons. I feel like I'm burnt out a bit, but at the same time, I dread it because it's the last one. And I'm not saying that this is the last one in the whole entire series, because there's a couple side stories I still want to tell, some origin stuff, but in the grand scheme of storytelling, this is the last bit for my characters. So what inspired me to write it was, I always tell people that ask me, what got me the idea of this. It's Joss Whedon's Firefly, Mass Effect, and Blade Runner in a blender. So I took kind of all these elements and mixed them together. Yeah, I know, it's stupid sci-fi, but I mean, that's kind of my thing. I enjoy reading sci-fi. I watch sci-fi. I kind of just fell into that. I didn't want to write fantasy, which I'm trying to with another project of mine, but I'm hitting the same damn wall. I just can't do fantasy. I just don't like fantasy. And you could be like, well, sci-fi is fantasy. Sci-fi fantasy is different from sci-fi. Sci-fi, which unfortunately I'm not doing sci-fi, but sci-fi was always asking a question. Sci-fi fantasies, Star Wars and all that. I'm just trying to write science fiction the way I can, which is I just use those elements and I did that. And over time it has actually changed a bit. It's still somewhat of what I've envisioned, but I can't do anything else with that. The only thing is, when it comes to fantasy, what would inspire me would be something. I don't want to say I was inspired by, the Lord of the Rings or anything from that fantasy realm, because even though I like Game of Thrones, I like Lord of the Rings, I just can't feel the passion from it. Like, I enjoy sitting down watching and, I guess consuming the media of it, but I just can't see myself writing a story from it, and I always could see it from sci-fi. So when I started my other fantasy project, I try to put a twist in it, try to put in different elements to see if it'll work, and it's kind of weird. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that one. Another project of mine that inspired me was, I really was a big fan of Atlantis Lost Empire. And this was kind of something that pushed me towards doing a reboot of it. So I wrote kind of a outline idea of it to see, maybe if I write the script, I can actually get Disney to contact me. It's so stupid, but it'd be worth a shot to put it online and be like, hey, here's a stupid fanfic of Atlantis for a reboot. You guys like it? Okay. Whatever. Doesn't matter. They're never going to do it. But that was an idea, was to reboot a couple of classic films that bombed, but were cult classics, though. And not to, crap on the original movies, but, try to spin it. Because I know I wouldn't mind seeing a live-action version of that movie nowadays, even though they're doing live-action movies all the time. Like, we have Lion King and Aladdin and Mulan coming now. because we have to reboot everything. Any which way, there were a couple old projects, like, because again, when I was a kid, I just think up stories for fun. I ended up breaking out a couple old ones out of the vault and started working on those as well. So I have a bunch of these projects on hold until I'm completely done with the Flux trilogy. And I'm putting the old episodes, or not the old episodes, old content, not old content. Well, yeah, old content on hold, and then side projects of Flux I'm definitely putting on the back burner until I get enough of an audience going that they're like, hey, can you do these origin stories or side stories that you have? Because I want to see if there's a positive you know positive intake from it, I guess, to see if I can actually do it. If not, I'll just write them down, put them on the side, and be done with them. Never release them. So that's kind of what inspired me. Things that have inspired me, and probably other people as well. And I guess I'm down to the last topic, being how to be inspired. This is kind of a hard one, like I said, because like fantasy was always complicated for me. When it came to doing Flux, that became really hard because Mass Effect I grew up with, and 3 kind of just pushed me away, and then Andromeda pushed me away. So I kind of don't have any feelings for Mass Effect anymore. Joss Whedon's Firefly, I always go back to like every year and watch a few episodes, or I'll just rewatch the whole series. I'll watch the movie again because it's that good of a show. If you haven't seen it, oh my, I know it's on Hulu. I don't know if it's still on Netflix. I know for a fact that there has to be a way for you to find it. I know they re-released the one edition of the show. They don't have the movie with it, but they have like an anniversary edition that is on Blu-ray. That's not bad. It's like I think $25. Again, still decent price. So that was something I always went back to and looked and rewatched and got some inspiration from. Blade Runner was just the one film I think out of sci-fi I enjoyed the most. Even the sequel 2049, I find it enjoyable, and I also add that into the loop of stuff for inspiration, but I kind of just boiled it down to just Blade Runner. I only really just watched it for concepts, and that's it. Stuff that makes you think. So tell me in the comments below what inspires you guys, what you find inspiring out of other works, and also ask me any questions below, and I'll probably make a content video of it, like Q&A, or just something that's got you guys going. So I'm Tater, and I'm leaving. I gotta figure out an outro because I don't know how to do these videos. I've done videos for years and I still can't figure out an outro for these things. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.